Blowing precious resources on retro games is amazing. It's like a top 3 activity for me. But you do not need to throw a bunch of time, money, energy, and shelf real estate at your Super Nintendo console to have a great Super Nintendo experience. Now, I love Super Nintendo, but unfortunately I'm an incurable cheapskate and games are not getting any cheaper. I'm also grumpy, short on time and space, bad at video games, not particularly good at self-care, I usually bowl under 100, and I kind of forget where I was going with this, but I think my point is that I always want to get more out of less. When it comes to Super Nintendo essentials, honestly the best answer is probably a classic Mini. The aftermarket prices are bloated, but the value is great for what's included, and you won't have to take out loans for upscalers or medical bills directly related to lugging around a CRT. But if you happen to have the requisite 3-decade-old technology laying around, I've done some highly scientific analysis here using the Shawn's Everyday, Every Nerd Buying and Gaming method. I call it Seabag. It's a working title. To pick out the top 5 most essential Super Nintendo games that deliver maximum console experience for minimum wherewithal in return. Or 5-ish, I should say, because I do not have the spine to settle on a definitive list, as evidenced by my number 5 entry, Donkey Kong Country 2, or some other secondary platformer. Maybe it's one of the classic Disney games or Super Star Wars that gets your nostalgia going. Super Mario All-Stars catches flack for its changes, but I think it's a loving recreation of the NES originals. Personally, I'd spend a little more money on the still affordable, definitely awesome Mega Man X to add some run-and-gun flair to my lineup. There are so many great, relatively inexpensive platformers on the Super Nintendo that you really need a second one in your lineup. Spoiler alert. If you've ever watched me play a one-on-one fighting game, you'll wonder if I even know which character I'm using or if my controller is actually plugged in. But despite my total ineptitude, Street Fighter II was just too influential in gaming history to not make an appearance as number 4 on our list. Killer Instinct and Mortal Kombat 1 through 3 are all high-impact, low-price contenders, but Street Fighter II hit the mainstream scene first, and in my opinion, Street Fighter II Turbo did it best. Now, I actually have given up on one-on-one fighters, but I still want to Super Nintendo punch people. If you can relate to that, I recommend Konami Brawler's Final Fight and its superhero clone Batman Returns, or paying a little more for the stellar, unique Saturday Night Slam Masters. Number 3 is Super Mario Kart, except better because it's actually F-Zero. It's faster, it's cheaper, and high-speed futuristic bounty hunter racing is just a little more engaging than Italian plumbers and go-karts. But most impressively, this was a Super Nintendo launch title. Right out of the gate, the brand new console gave us a brand new type of racing game. Instead of driving into scenery that feels like it's generating on the fly, or that weird RC-style steering from an isometric angle, we finally got a proper combo of perspective, control, and feeling like the entire track actually exists. Super Mario Kart does this too, but F-Zero did it first, and I would argue, more essentially. Or better. Just better in this case. But either or is great. One of the longest running, most storied franchises in all of gaming, and yet the 3-decade-old Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, my number 2 essential Super Nintendo game, might still be my favorite mainline entry. I'll just never understand this newfangled third dimension these crazy 4th-gen consoles are all talking about these days. This top-down action-adventure is the most expensive game officially on this list. Yeah, I noticed. And would I rather have that or 10 beat-up copies of NFL Quarterback Club? But it also has the most to offer overall. Fighting, exploring, puzzling, a great narrative. And it's not an RPG, but it can probably scratch that action RPG itch a little, especially after you do a little Seabag analysis on the other viable entries. There's just so much plus quality stuff to do here that still contributes to the main narrative. I would contest you could have an entire console's worth of fun with just this game. And maybe one other. The number 1 thing that I hate about this list is that the number 1 entry is obviously Super Mario World. The original pack-in game is presumably the most popular and iconic Super Nintendo game ever, and it's still one of the most beloved entries in the mainline Super Mario series. There's no shortage of great 2D platformer competition here, see Exhibit 5 in this list, but it's almost impossible to imagine experiencing the Super Nintendo without Super Mario World. It's also not so coincidentally one of the easiest games to get your hands on, and I believe that literally every single console owner should also have this game, because it is the most essential game on the Super Nintendo. And if you can spend a little more, the Super Mario World plus All-Stars Kart would be a pretty cool get as well. And there you have it, the top 5 most essential Super Nintendo games that deliver maximum console experience for minimum wherewithal in return. Yes, it's a little platformer heavy and a lot anticlimactic as far as lists go, but unless you want to hear my TED Talk for the Retrobit Jalico Brawlers pack, the Rushing Beat trilogy is so underappreciated. It's all I've got until I can do a little more seabagging. Gotta do something about the name though, that sounds awful. Hey, thank you so much for watching, I really appreciate it, and thank you to Gamers Outpost for partnering with me on this video. They are a gaming media outlet powered by gamers. Check them out on social media or at gamersoutpostllc.com. Thanks again, everyone. I really appreciate all your support, and I'll see you next time. Oh, hey, Charlie. Oh, hey, what are you playing down here? You got... Oh, gross, Charlie. Oh, it's Batman Forever. It's disgusting. And you probably got it all over you, too. Oh, you are definitely getting a bath. I'm just kidding. You don't have to take a bath.